what's interesting and fascinating for me here is that this one, the mental plane, which again, mental plane, intelligent activity, fifth ray, third ray activity is intelligent use of the mind faculties. And again, of course, it's at the seat of the soul where the mind can contact the soul energy to do all of this that we're talking about in the first place. So it's saying that that has been gradually coming in, but before the astral plane energy was seeping in. And what we've also seen simultaneous to that is a lot of activity going on this planet with pushing more angst, more fear, more trauma, more pain, suffering, and negative energy, you could say, into the astral realm with more division and fighting, wars, and hypersexuality in the industry that's gone completely unchecked and is hopefully now in the process of getting checked to some degree. We have criminals in our entertainment field and our governments. Why? And so all that energy of the astral light, which is an energy that is supposed to be helping us to be nurtured for our growth, has actually been perhaps stunting our growth. Well, now in comes a fourth light or energy that can nurture us and keep us on that path towards growth and vitality. And that's the light from the soul. That's the light from the mental plane, is coming in and fusing with the other three, where before it might have been causing this imbalance that we're seeing outpictured in our society. So it's again fascinating to see in 1936 how this is explained, and then 2024 how it's been observed, how we can observe it today. An intensification of the light is going on all the time, and this increase in intensity began on the Earth at about the time when man discovered the uses of electricity, which discovery was a direct result of this intensification. The electrification of the planet through the widespread use of electricity is one of the things which is inaugurating the new age, and which will aid in bringing about the revelation of the presence of the soul. Before long, this intensification will become so great that it will materially assist in the rendering of the veil which separates the astral plane from the physical plane. The dividing etheric web will shortly be dissipated, and this will permit a more rapid inflow of the third aspect of light. And so the third light that it's discussing here in the astral, just to revisit, it's not all negative. It's a soup. It's a conglomerate of everyone's unseen emotional energy and thoughts and imagination. It's also where Elmer Gates would go in his dark room and pull inventions from. It's where everything is. It's where everything that is not physical is. And that's the realm where people can, travel around and spy. It's just this other place than physicality that we've known to be true. But that has been possibly distorted through the information that has been used to kind of trigger emotions of people, as psychology has been currently used to experiment upon us, whereas with the mental activity and modern psychology, esoteric psychology, we will now be able to experiment on ourselves towards a different outcome, not to have mind control, but to control our minds, which is very interesting and is very fascinating. And so this is saying that we're going to have a more rapid inflow of the third aspect of light. And again, the more tapped in, tuned in you are, as Esther Hicks says, to the astral plane, you can connect with the divine. So again, you're stepping up. Just like people talk about 3D, third dimension, and 4D could be the astral plane, and then 5D, we're talking about 5D, spiritual community I'm talking about. 5D is where you would access the mental plane. It all coincides with the rays, with all of this stuff that we're talking about. So we'll be able to more rapidly inflow with that. And again, that's where inventions come from, and different types of ideas, any kind of ideas and inspiration and things that are not currently manifested in the physical can be pulled from the astral plane as well, and stepped down. Again, it's stepping down from the soul level, and that connection to the astral will be needed in order to communicate, because it gets stepped down in each stage in order to translate it. Just like the game of telephone, where the message gets distorted as you're passing it along from person to person. It's the same idea, that as you're passing down divine inspiration and information, the message can get distorted by the person who's sending it, as it's going to talk about later in this section, or by just whether people are ready to even receive it or not. Again, there's not a crowd on the leading edge of thought. To continue quoting Jerry and Esther Hicks, there's not a crowd on the leading edge of thought. So it's not, this is esoteric psychology. It is for and intended to be understood by a select few. This isn't something for to go viral. I think I was trying to say virality. It's not something that goes viral. It is something that is picked up like a seed that's planted over time, and it's meant for a select few. And those with the eyes to see, the ears to hear, they pick up the message, and over time, the ones that are activated by it will do great works, will do what needs to be done. At the end of this paragraph, and in thy light shall we see light. It's a process. It's a gradual thing. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon. Is that what they say? I'm just a plethora of quotes right now. So the idea again is that the more we are training ourselves and readying ourselves, I was like, what is the point? The more we are training ourselves and readying ourselves to receive the information, then you can share it out. But it's going to be a tweak process over time. It's been 88 years since this book was printed, and we're still questioning, like, who's the right source of information. I love that this passage is going to tell us later that it's not about the person. It's not about the transmitter. It's like listening to a song on the radio and then praising the radio for bringing you the song. The radio is just a vehicle of transmission. It's not the source. Focus on the source of the message, the content of the message that you're getting. There's people that have even said things about Alice Bailey and all of the, Helen Blavatsky and this whole camp. And again, focusing on the message. What is the fruit? What can we gain from this? And again, we're applying it through discernment. Always, what can we see looking at this in 2024 as compared to what was being said in 1936? What is accurate? What needs to be updated? What has been debunked? What has been proven? This isn't just absorbing and taking everything, but it is, so far, to me, a lot of it checks out. Sorry, my throat's getting dry. Still, again, recovering from a cold. Thank you so much for watching. All right. We were here. The light from the astral plane, a starry radiance, and the light of the planet itself will be more closely blended, and the result upon humanity and upon the three other kingdoms in nature cannot be overemphasized. It will, for one thing, profoundly affect the human eye and make the present sporadic etheric vision a universal asset. It will bring within the radius of our range of contact the infrared and ultraviolet gamut of colors, and we shall see what at present is hidden. All this will tend to destroy the platform upon which the materialists stand and pave the way, first, for the admission of the soul as a sound hypothesis. This is science. And secondly, for the demonstration of its existence. We only need more light in the esoteric sense in order to see the soul. And that light will shortly be available, and we shall understand the meaning of the words, and in thy light shall we see light. And in thy light shall we see light, the light of the soul, the fourth kind. This intensification, I was just thinking about the movie. There's a movie, The Fourth Kind, it's about aliens, right? It's a foreign nature. It's a foreign energy that's coming in. So this invader, these energies that are coming in, these different beings, these beings of light, all of this stuff, you start to step it down from all of the fear and the glitz and the glamour of it, and you start to understand that this is all about the stepping up of consciousness over time, period, or the lack thereof that's causing the disintegration of society and the suffering of the masses, period. This intensification of the light will continue until AD 2025. Again, this is written in 1936. They're saying that we're going to have this intensification of light through AD 2025. We have just stepped into 2024. So this is very interesting. When there will come a cycle of relative stability and of steady shining without much augmentation. In the second decanate of Aquarius, decans are the 30-day intervals of each sign. Sorry, am I getting that right? Each sign. The decanate of Aquarius. Well, let's look it up. It's a time period within the 30 days of the sign, so it might be just the 10 days. Which makes sense because deck, etymology, decanate. Astrology. Each sign is allocated a triplicity consisting of 3 of the 4 classical elements, air, water, earth, or fire, and is therefore subdivided into 3 equal parts of 10 degrees each. These parts are referred to as decans or decanates. So if you're looking at the astrological wheel or chart and you have the 12 zodiacs and those split across the 4, and in each one you have your chunks. They also break down into the days that go into 30 days in a month. So you have 10, 20, 30, 3 decanates within each pie slice of the zodiac sign too. And within those degrees or those shifts in days, there's an energy shift because it's shifting in which decanate, whatever the decan is ruled by, just like cycles within cycles that it always is. Like Aquarius is ruled by Saturn and Uranus, and each planet in each sign has a different energy, has a different, so if it's the water influence, if it's this and all the other, it's a lot. And so this idea is that all of these things are happening and impacting this shift and change of the body, and as above so below, the bodies of the planets. And over time, we're also seeing this shift through our age. We're in the Aquarian age. And within that age as well, there are different decanates of time, different degrees of time. We could call it different degrees of awareness, awakening, and influence, all simultaneous. That's making the very complicated thing about what I was explaining before very simple. It's a matter of understanding influences and when they happen at different times and how it manifests on our plane, our planet. And then observing, okay, it says that this is supposed to happen at this time. Did this happen at this time? Yes. What historical events happened on the planet at that time? Were they synonymous with what we're saying these energies and influence of these planets are? Yes. Then can we say that astrology is valid? Yes. And so that's what I'm saying. Like, people can do this, they're just choosing not to. I don't know that much about the astrology, but I damn sure will learn. If no one's going to do it, you got to do it, right? I do have that PowerPoint that I was working on before about the ages and kind of doing that study of history and the influence of the shifts in different ages over time on humanity. So here we're going to read this again. In the second decanate of Aquarius, these 3 aspects will again be augmented by increased light from the 4th aspect. Again, that is the mind energy, the mind light, the light from the soul realm, reaching us via the universal chitta or mind stuff. This will flood the world. So the soul energy, the soul light force is going to flood the world. That's what it's saying. That's amazing, because right now we've been flooded with something else. By that time, however, the soul will be recognized as a fact. And as a consequence of this recognition, our entire civilization will have changed so radically that we cannot today even guess at the form it will take. The next 10 years, so again, so it's interesting because on the astrological wheel, when we're looking at our own birth chart, we're looking at the decanates in terms of 10 degrees and 10 days. So this is a larger cycle, and it's talking about different ages, like the Aquarian constellation age, and say in the next 10 years. So a decanate can be 10-year term, 10 degrees, 10 days, but it is modeled that chunk of time that can be mapped out and observed in the same way. The next 10 years will see a greatly increased merging of the first 3 forms of light, and those of you who are awake to these issues and happenings will find it interesting to note what is going on. Well, it's talking about me. We'll find it interesting to know what is going on during those times. The consensus of opinion in the religious and spiritualistic fields and in the field of biblical prophecy, and likewise the study of the symbolism of a pyramid, lead students to believe that the immediate future will see some great event and some unforeseen spiritual happening. This should be duly anticipated, and careful preparation should be made for it. I refer not to the coming of any individual. I refer to a natural process with far-reaching effects. So again, talking about the Christed One returning, a Christ consciousness coming back to the planet. We are talking about the evolution of consciousness. So the evolution not being of people from, a monkey to a man, it's talking about our evolution cycle being an evolution of consciousness. There are certain fields, let's see where we are. Okay. There are certain other fields of activity which will all do their part in demonstrating the fact of the soul. There is an aspect of human consciousness which has for long baffled the materialistic psychologist, and this is the curious power of prevision, the ability to foresee and foretell with accuracy events coming in the immediate future or distant happenings. There are warnings given by some inner monitor, which have again and again saved man from death and disaster. There are the appearances to their friends and relatives of men or women who have just died, before any word of their death has been received. This is not in the field of telepathic knowledge of the death, but involves the appearance of the person. There is the power to participate in events in distant places and to recover the recollections of what transpired with accuracy as to place, personnel, and detail. These powers and many similar previsions and recognitions have long bewildered investigators and must find correct explanation. In their wise investigation and the accumulation of responsible evidence, and in the later substantiation of the prevision, it will begin to be seen that some factor exists in man which is not bound by space-time limitations, but which transcends the normal human consciousness. Super consciousness we will study as much as the subconscious or the self-conscious man. The present attempted investigation and explanations are inadequate and do not account satisfactorily for all the facts. When, however, they are approached from the standpoint of the soul, with its faculty of omniscience and its freedom from categories of past, present, and future, for they are lost in the consciousness of the eternal now, we shall begin to understand the process a little more clearly. When the true dweller in the body is recognized and the laws of prevision are discovered, and when the power to foresee is generally prevalent, then we shall begin to find ample proof of the existence of the soul. It will be impossible to account for the ordinary phenomena then current without admitting its existence. Along these various lines, proof of the soul will accumulate. In the massing of testimony and of evidence, a fruitful field of activity lies. Along these various lines, proof of the soul will accumulate. In the massing of testimony and of evidence, a fruitful field of activity lies. On page 105 now, if you're reading along in the book. In the training of the higher types of men, in the use of the soul force and soul powers, and in the trained control of the mechanism, that evidence so produced will be seen to be of so high an order and will be so scientifically presented that it will be regarded as of as much importance and as justifiable as any views presented by our leading scientists in their various fields of research today. The study of the soul will before long be as legitimate and respectable an investigation as any scientific problem, such as research into the nature of the atom. Amazing. The investigation of the soul and its governing laws will before long engross the attention of our finest minds. The newer psychology will eventually succeed in proving the fact of its existence, and the paralleling, intuitive, and instinctive response of mankind to soul nature, emanating from the invisible side of life, will steadily and successfully prove the existence of a spiritual entity in man, an entity all-wise, immortal, divine, and creative. But the process would be slow were it not for the work now being done by a group of disciples and initiates working in collaboration with Master P, not their old rapper, who has his headquarters in America and who, with his disciples, is doing much to stimulate the various psychological schools in the world today. It is needless for students to endeavor to ascertain his identity. He works through movements and schools of thought and does not work with private individuals. He works practically entirely on the mental plane with the power of thought, the mental plane with the power of thought, and is quite unknown and unrecognized except by his fellow workers in the various countries in the world and by the disciples on his ray, the fourth ray. The whole rest of this section is actually interesting in that it's very much speaking to basically, I think, like the fangirls and the fanboys of esoteric studies and all of this stuff, the spiritual people who want so badly to have, a star on their report card in terms of I'm special, I'm contacting this ascended master or this person, this particular person, or I'm channeling this specific entity or energy. And again, like I was saying before, like praising the radio and getting so caught up on you being the vessel or you being the transmitter or you being the student of said master or you being the direct recipient of some divine idea. And so it's all about me, very, very personal, very personality. So I think the whole rest of this section is basically to kind of just like reiterate in a million ways that these ascended energies, these higher consciousness thoughts, and at the end of the day, if you pull that away to the fact that there is one true source and one true being, it all folds into itself anyway. It's all one source. It's not about these individual masters and personalities and all this stuff. So at the end of the day, that's a fool's errand, is trying to like be the one who's getting this certain training and in the rapport with this certain person, and I'm definitely a channel of this. And there's people publishing books these days saying that they're getting it definitely from so and so, and therefore their message is more valid. And people that are trying to analyze and debunk it, this is saying, similarly in those efforts, if someone's saying they're being in contact with this master, you're not. He mostly works on the mental plane. He's talking with, these people. He's only talking to these, it's just a lot of that for this next section. But I think that it's still just as much important because, again, the message is about the source, the actual teaching. It's not about, glorifying or glamorizing or idolizing the messenger. It's about the message. So too with Christianity, it's about the message, not an idolizing of the messenger to where you will become separate from that, separate from they, and incapable of achieving that which they have achieved. These were the teachings were not just so you could just go, oh, look what I can do. It's so that you can do the same. I and my Father are one. We can do these great works, right? Much that is opening in the world of psychology today is due to the work he does stimulating the minds of the leaders of movements. So this master stimulates the minds of the leaders of movements and works on the plane of thought to do so. So that a person who is in rapport with fifth plane, thought plane energy can receive the energy or the impetus to lead a movement. So depending on which ray you are attuned to might be which personality type. Again, we're talking about the creative work versus the vocational work. If you go to apply for a job that's on Indeed, the job description is not going to be that you're going to be the type of, you're going to be the person who is going to lead a movement. The creative work, that could be in the job description. My job description is that I'm going to lead a movement, so I'm going to study under or get in rapport with the ray energy of my ray type, which is what we're learning, the 7 rays, so that I can get in rapport with the energy. I can step down and translate the message of the divine, 5th ray, 4th ray, astral ray, and come down into the human world, be the mouthpiece to speak out and lead a movement. We're talking about Gandhi. We're talking about Mother Teresa. We're talking about, all these people. So, but we need them in present day. So there's been a lot happening, turbulence on the world to create a lot less of these, where we can't name as many of these people that were causing these big shifts in terms of moving society forward. There's a lot of big players right now, but what are they moving forward in terms of more life, more freedom, more happiness, more abundance for all? It's time, it's cyclical, and that time is coming around again. So again, this master works on helping to stimulate the minds of leaders and movements. He works with them on the mental plane, but does not contact them as physical plane individuals. So if you're studying this and hoping to get a visit on your doorstep and training in that way, this is basically saying that's not how it's going to go down. Page 106. The urgency of the time is great, and the masters are exceedingly active and profoundly concerned at this time with the work of salvaging the world. It needs to be salvaged from what we're seeing, right? The chaos. They have not the time for personal work except with their own groups of accepted cellas, all of whom are active in the world work, or they would not be in the master's group. So they are active in the world work. Again, people who are saying that they are in rapport with these masters, but they are not actively doing some kind of service to move and advance the great work forward, which is the evolution of consciousness, snapping people out of this automaton, disconnected, competitive, hateful energy and into something that is more productive, the new way, the new age. Then they are not going to be someone who is in rapport with one of these masters. Masters accept the student's ready, the teacher will come. The student better be someone that's willing to do the work to actually advance the world. Like, you're going to have a message. You're going to be putting something forward. If we're talking about artists, again, the artists have a special place. Thinking about music artists, it's going to be the artist with the message, not the artist that's, dumbing people down. What timeline or what planetary shift are you serving? Because there's two simultaneously going on. They are doing their job very well at working towards, dumbing people down, churning out stuff that's not going to advance the race. But if you want to be part of the wave of the fourth light that is coming in toward, according to this text, that's soul energy. So your music better be soulful. Your words better hold weight, hold current, hold energy that's going to push forward. You're going to be the leader of a movement if, working with a master like this. But there's different kinds of masters, all of them, right? With different job descriptions of things different work that needs to be done in all arenas. It's not just music, right? It could be in the food that we're eating, right? The way that we're organizing our businesses, the way that we're structuring our government, the way that we're building our homes, the way that the water that it's endless. The books that we're reading, all of these things. All of these things. Also, they may work intermittently with small groups of probationers to whom they offer opportunity and give an occasional hint. Each of them has a very few probationers in training to take the place of cellos who pass on to initiation, but beyond these two groups during this century, they do no personal work, leaving the many aspirants to the care of lesser initiates and cellos. Even their work and their personal cellos at this time are much restricted, and word has been sent out to the working disciples in the world to stand on their own feet. Stand on your own feet. Use your own judgment, and not handicap the masters at this time of intense strain and danger by attracting their attention needlessly. This can be like even not so high level and mystical. We're not like, I'm only talking, this could be about physical present day. Instead of thinking that you're going to get a teacher to come and break everything down for you and hold your hand through it, it's saying like, show me that you're going to apply the teachings. I think that's what any mentor does today, right? They don't want you to just come to them and ask for a handout. They want to know that you are going to do the work, do some sort of hard work initially. I did the UCLA years ago, their program. They have a leadership program there, Leap leadership program. They're still going on. And at the end of it, you have this opportunity to work with some of these different mentors. And there's all different kinds of mentors in all different kinds of fields. And there was one mentor in particular. There was different flavors of them. I got matched up with one mentor. We actually went out to lunch, and Brian, I always joke about today because we call her chicken salad because, I was supposed to be gaining something from her, and she was just like, oh yeah, I'm going to take you with me to New York Fashion Week. But you can get your own ticket though, right? And you can stay with me, yes, in the room with me and my boyfriend. And then we can, we'll do this. We'll do that. I go to Fashion Week. I do all this. And then like, that's supposed to be like getting me all, excited, right? It wasn't my match. And then we go out to lunch, and she's like, she has me pay and she orders a chicken salad to go. And I was like, what the heck is going on? I'm like, this is a weird vibe. This is not what I'm wanting out of it. And it seemed like, again, she was in that place, in that program to get the title, but wasn't really willing or able to give the fruit. Whereas there was another gentleman there, Virgil Klender, who was a mentor, and he had a specific book program that he had you go through. If anyone was going to even get a chance or an opportunity to be mentored by this man, you had to read, and he had a list of, I think it was at least 5 or 6 different books. You had to do a report on it, and he asked that it be handwritten because he knows that there is something about doing a handwritten, and it had to be done in a certain way. And he wanted you to complete this book program, do his book reports, and report back to him. And then he was going to then review that and then decide if he was going to work with you and be your mentor. That's the kind of person that I would rather work with. I want someone who's going to challenge my mind, make me do the work, and make sure that I'm accountable, not just take me around on private jets and fly around to be in the life, but not be doing anything of substance. Not that she wasn't, but that's not what she was presenting to me. And then at the end of the day, she took something from me extra to go. I'm not there yet. You're already there. So don't go with someone that's going to charge you to learn from them and not give you any fruit. You should be able to bear the fruit. Don't just let them order chicken salads on you, right? Have discernment. What am I gaining from this? Not just the title, not just the connections. I want some actual fruit. The world issues today are of such importance, and the opportunity before humanity is so great, and the masters are so entirely occupied with world affairs and with the dominant and prominent figures in high places in the nations, that the instruction of unimportant people in the various little occult groups and societies is temporarily suspended. That sentence is so rude, but it's hilarious. It's going back to what I was just saying, and the final point is these people are busy. So if you're going to expect their time, you definitely have to be serious. You definitely have to be sifted through, because there's a lot of people that are raising their hand because they want to be brought up or put on, so to speak. But again, you have to understand with respect, these people are very important. Their time is important, and so is yours. So you have that respect for yourself, but you also have that respect for them. Again, this is talking about masters and the ethers and esoteric and all of these things, getting a rapport through meditation, but this is also very applicable in the everyday life. They don't have time for unimportant people. Where did that go? That was so rude. They don't have time for unimportant people in their little groups in societies. No, it's been suspended. The time is relatively so short in which to accomplish and carry out certain aspects of the plan as entrusted to the great ones, that all true cellos are going about their work and endeavoring to solve their own problems. How great a demonstration of your willingness to do the work if you're out there working to solve your own problems. That's definitely someone that a master would want to work with, right? Without having to call on the master's help, thus leaving him free for more important work. Although, to a level, step down the ego, you can never be too important or too advanced to pay it forward and to help another person to, if again, the end goal is to make the world a better place. This should always be happening, and we shouldn't just be like, oh, I'm too big to work with you, right? It's, again, that's where we're going. There's still a little bit of interesting stuff going on in this paragraph, I think. The closer a disciple is to a master, the more deeply he realizes this fact, and the more he endeavors to fulfill his duty, learn his lessons, serve humanity, and lift some of the load of work off the shoulders of the master. But again, it brings you back to focus. Spending your time to teach someone and work with someone is work, and it is taking them away from the time that they have to do their work. So with that respect, it should be a very symbiotic relationship, a very fair flow of exchange with regards to understanding that any second that they take away from doing what they are meant to do, their creative work, is very vital. And so as much as you can, help yourself and serve humanity on your own, in your own little corner, on your own little channel. It matters. The world today is full of disciples of varying degree, and each of them is, in his place, able to guide and help some aspirants. The world is full of teaching and of books, able to inspire and help all true seekers after spiritual knowledge. The last 50 years have seen much teaching given out and much esoteric training given to the world and available now to all who earnestly seek it. Aspirants have much to work upon and much theory to render into practice, and this leaves the masters free for more important work. There's no reason we shouldn't be doing what we're doing now, studying these in little study groups on our own, trying to get some glimpse of understanding before we can then say, okay, I mastered this, I understand this. But as we study each section, time is happening in between because we're actually applying it, right? We're actually letting it soak in. One of my favorite books, The Master Key System by Charles F. Hannell, it talks about how you read each chapter and you have to give it the time before you move forward. Don't jump ahead. You read that chapter and then you reread that chapter, and you apply the homework in each chapter before you're able to move on. And that used to drive me crazy in the beginning. I wasn't able to do it. I was like, this is going to take me forever to finish this book. But when you finish that way, you're prepared. You've done the work. It's a lot different than speed reading through things so that you can raise your hand in a group, say, I read this, I read this, I read 100 books this year. But what did you take in from them? The longer you sit with a thing, the more intimately connected you become with it. And this becomes like a meditation that I revisit week after week, and that I'm hoping over time the stuff is seeping in. But still, I forgot what the fourth ray was. You got to stay with it. And then, like, over time, it will come. But it's not a sprint. It is a marathon. One of the interesting things that is happening, and one of the factors which will serve eventually in the work of demonstrating the fact of the soul, is the mass of communications, inspired writings, and telepathic dictations which is flooding the world today. As you know, the spiritualistic movement is producing a vast amount of this inspired or pseudo-inspired literature, some of it of the very highest order and unquestionably the work of highly evolved disciples, and some of it most mediocre in quality. The various theosophical societies have been the recipients of similar communications, and they are found in every occult group. True communications are frequently of deep spiritual value and contain much teaching and help for the aspirant. Students of the times will do well to remember that it is the teaching that is of the moment, not the supposed source. This is what we were saying earlier. It is the teaching that is of the moment, not the supposed source. By their intrinsic value alone, these writings and communications must be judged. These communications emanate in the majority of instances from the soul plane, and the recipient or the communicator, the intermediary or scribe, is either inspired by his own soul or has tapped the thought level and knowledge. I'll read that again. The intermediary or scribe is either inspired by his own soul or has tapped the thought level and knowledge of the ray group to which his soul belongs. Again, that's like figuring out where your like soul's job description is, and then tapping into that wisdom, calling upon those inventions, those ideas, that spark, that mission. It will come through getting in that lane and then being receptive to that information. All the great inventors of the past did this in that way. It's a similar thing. And that invention could be a new way of cooking, a new way of doing business, a new way of all those different things that we said before. But the idea is getting in your spiritual lane, not just lining up and raising your hand for any old thing that, pays the bills. It's a different way of looking at work and service. He tunes in on a reservoir of thought, and his mind and brain translate these thoughts into words and phrases. The game of spiritual telephone again. In a lesser number of cases, the man who is receiving a dictation or writing is in telepathic rapport with some more advanced disciple than himself, and his mind is being impressed by some chela in his group. This chela who is, and let me just define this, we're talking about this a lot, define chela. This isn't going to be the spiritual definition. This thing is just a claw and a lobster thing. A chela is a Sanskrit word that literally means servant or slave in Hinduism, but it means like the student, the recipient of the teachings of the master. Student or disciple of a spiritual master or slave. So it will be impressed by some slave in his group. Just kidding. The chela who is closer to the master than he is passes on to him some of the knowledge that he has absorbed through being able to live within the master's aura. Within the master's aura, being able to live within the master's aura. But the master is not concerned in the process. It lies between the chela and the aspirant. In these cases, the receiver of the communication is often misled and thinks that the master himself is dictating to him, whereas in reality he has, through a more advanced chela than himself, tuned in on the master's thought atmosphere. Again, this whole ending section of this book is trying to be like, don't think so highly of yourself to think that you are dealing with the great ones. It's not about dealing with the great ones. It's about preparing yourself and doing the work and demonstrating that you are ready and available. And then you might be put in rapport with some being psychically, but then when that happens, just keep it in check. You're probably working with another student who's been on the path for a long time too, which is just fine. Again, same thing, if it's not through meditation, you're just like looking around online and you find someone that you're getting in rapport with. It might not be someone who's been studying this for 50 years. It might be someone who's just reading this book along with you for the first time, and that's okay. Are you willing to do the work together? Are you aligned in your mission and your goal of just being a seeker of spiritual knowledge? Then you can head over to Siobhan Bomar's channel, who's been doing this for X amount of time, and get some more heavy teachings. It might just, put together puzzle pieces, or it might take apart something that you thought you learned over here. It's all fine. It's just a matter of learning and applying. It's not about the radio that's giving you the information. I hope that, both me and this book harping on that right now, I hope that's been helpful in driving in that point. So that's what this whole last section is about, and we're about done. Yay. None of the masters of the sixth initiation, such as masters M and KH, are at this time working through dictation with their disciples. They are too much engrossed with world problems and with the work of watching over destinies of the prominent world figures. They are watching over the destinies of the prominent world figures in the various nations to have any opportunity to dictate teaching to any particular disciple in some small field of activity upon subjects with which is sufficient already is known to enable a disciple to go ahead alone and unaided. Again, do it yourself. Don't worry about waiting for a master. Two of the masters are working telepathically and through dictation with several accepted disciples. You must be accepted. And their effort is to inspire these disciples who are active in world work to greater usefulness in the plan. Be useful. They are working in this way in order to impress a few of the prominent thinkers in the field of science and of social welfare with the needed knowledge which will enable them to make the right moves and the emergence of the race into greater freedom. Again, this is the goal. But I know of no others in this particular generation who are so doing. Again, this was back in 1936, so things could have changed. For they have delegated much of this work to their initiates and disciples. The bulk of the communicators today working through aspirants on the physical plane are active working cellos of accepted degree who, living as they do in the thought aura of the master and his group, are steadily endeavoring to reach all kinds of people all over the world in all groups. Hence the increasing flood of communications, of inspired writings, and of personal messages and teaching. More people are getting glimpses of this and transmitting in their own different individual ways, is what this is saying. The result of not having this very strict and regimented way of contacting, sitting in meditation, having an aha moment, channeling a whole book, and being like Swamiji Nityananda and all of those, people that have divine insight and intel. They're saying that the more people are just popping up randomly in their different places and spaces from just earnestly doing the work. When you add to the above the equally large flood of communications which emanate from the transmitter's own souls and from the realm of the subconscious, you have accounted for the mass of material going out now. In all this, there is need for deep thankfulness at the growing responsiveness to the sensitivity of man. Man is becoming more sensitive and more in need of answers, and more answers are coming based on just more people getting in a rapport with their soul and channeling even their own soul message. So this is all great. That the first reaction and effect of such an outpouring of communications is often increase of spiritual pride and ambition, and that the stepping down of the teaching from the mind to the brain and from the brain into words and sentences often fails in adequacy is sadly true, and that there is frequently misapprehension as to the emanating source of the instructions is also true. For the lack of humility in man and the lack of a true sense of proportion are great. Remember to be humble. You were just the messenger of source, not the originator of the message. That's another thing to keep in mind as you listen to people. Is it about me and what I can give you, or is it about the message and what you can give you once you unlock this within yourself? Those are the people that I tend to listen to. But out of this inflow from the subjective side of life are coming new knowledge, increased devotion to the plan, and those indications which will eventually bring us assurance. Men will know, and know soon, that the soul is not an imaginary fiction, that it is not just a symbolic way of expressing a deep-seated hope, and it is not man's method of building a defense mechanism. These are the things that have been said about people who believe in the soul. Nor is it an illusory way of escape from a distressing present. They will know that the soul is a being that is responsible for all that appears upon the phenomenal plane. Yay! Next, we have 2 more questions to consider now, and they are as follows. Of what value is it to know about the 7 rays, and what is the significance of the outstanding soul qualities such as sentiency, consciousness, awareness, and light? Picking back up on page 110 next time, and I hope that this has been helpful for you. I know it's super long, 1 hour and 10 minutes. I don't know how YouTube works. I don't know how people work if you want it to be uploaded in a 1 chunk or 2 chunks, so I will do 3 things. I'll put it in a part 1 and part 2, and I'll do a whole one, and we'll just see. Whenever anyone comes across it, they can see and read it and watch it. And read along with me in however way is most beneficial to them. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.